It's Aussie Suffer here at your sim, and today I'll be showing you how to ILS land a Cessna 172 Skyhawk. If you want to go through the route with me, it's Stansted to Luton. In the EFB, we've got departing runway 22 and landing runway 25. Make sure that the approach procedure is ILS. Don't forget to file flight plan with ATC and send route to the avionics. There's some sort of bug here, I don't know what's going on with that, but it should be around 3,000 feet. So we're on the runway. Just to keep this tutorial quick and simple, there's some things of the G1000 avionics that I want to go through with you, okay? So we want to make sure that our ILS frequency is tuned with our charts. So we go to the charts for this flight, we find ILS DME, that's runway 25 at Luton. So we look up this chart and we get the frequency here. The frequency says 109.15 and identifies ILJ. So 109.15. To change our nav 1 and 2, so this is actually what we're able to change on here. So 109.15. And now to swap this, so this is what's active, what's in green. That's the active frequency, not what's in this box. To be able to swap between standby and active, you press the nav frequency swap button here. Okay, and it's set to nav 1 because that's what's in green. Before we take off, we want to change our CDI to GPS because we want it to follow our GPS route that is set on our MFD screen. So you've got your PFD, which is your primary flight display. You got your MFD, which is your multi-function display. So you've got your V speeds here. You got VY74. Now we want to climb to around 3,000 feet because that's where we have to intercept the localizer. So we've got the altitude knob here, and if you want it in the thousands, you get the outer one. If you want it in 100, you get the inner one, right? So 3,000 set. We want to press FLC, and that tells us what rate we want to climb to our flight level change. So FLC is flight level change to 3,000, but we want to choose what speeds we want to go at. So we want to climb at VY, which is our best rate of climb. It's the most efficient in the Cessna. So at 74 knots, we've got that up here. So once we enable the autopilot, it will try and maintain 74 knots speed, right? We also notice here is our barometric pressure. This is the pressure altitude. So throughout the day, just like the temperature, pressure altitude also changes. So it's important to make sure that the correct settings are set because every other aircraft in this vicinity is going to use the local barometric pressure. So we've got it in inches here, and in the UK we actually use hectopascal. So to change that, we go to PFD options and then altimeter units, hectopascals. Then we can click back. So now we've got it into hectopascals. Our air traffic control should have told us what our setting was once he gave us our clearance. He told us QNH is 1025. So that's already set here. If it's a different number and you don't want to scroll up and down, the barometer is here. So you've got that bigger dial, which it shows here, barometer. You can adjust that by going up and down. Or, say if I take it out of the setting, you can press comma and it will automatically set it to the local. In the 2020 settings, it was B, but in 2024, it's comma on the keyboard. We want to also make sure, let's go to our MFD screen. We want to make sure that our route is, I don't know what our route here is doing. It should not have done it like that. But anyway, what we'll do is we'll use the heading to go onto the track back here, okay? Or we can use direct to. Once we activate the approach after takeoff, we go to procedure, activate vector to final. It should automatically, from our position, take us to the final approach fix anyway. So I'll show you how to activate the approach. To make sure the approach is set up, we go down, we use the FMS button here, and we will scroll down to select approach. We'll make sure that our right ILS is selected. At the moment, it's got a different ILS selected. So we want to ILS 25. We press enter. Abbott is our initial approach fix, so we want it to go to Abbott. So here we are. We select Abbott. Minimums. To find out the minimums, we can go to our chart and scroll down. The MDA is, we'll do Cat 1 and it's 710. So we put the minimums on by using a small dial to baro, because we're using a barometer to tell us our minimums. And we're going to scroll all the way up. There's no faster way of doing this, to 710. Right, then we want to scroll down to where it says load. And we got this little warning about GPS. We ignore that, we press yes. So now everything should be, oh, I don't know what it's doing here. But once we activate the approach, let's go and let's try and press this one. Vector to final. Activate vector to final. And did it change? Right. What we'll do, we'll just intercept this, and then it will navigate us. There's still some bugs here, but don't worry. I'm still going to tell you how to get onto that line once we fly heading towards that line, and then we click GPS. We'll click nav, and then the GPS will follow it. So remember to have our CDI on GPS. We want to make sure our heading is set to the runway heading. Just good practice in case we have a problem on takeoff, and our autopilot can just keep flying straight for us. So we'll set that to 2222. Also, we want to go to PFD options, bearing 1, and make sure it's on ILS nav 1. For some reason, there's a bug. It keeps going from nav 1 to nav 2. To get that back to nav 1, you press left click and then right click, and it will jump back up. So remember, that's the standby frequency. This is what's actually active right now. So 109.15. Let's double check if that's the correct frequency. Yep, 109.15. Because we're not close to receiving the signals, the identifier hasn't come up yet. But the closer we get, we will see ILJ pop up. So let's go and take off. So release the parking brake. We want to rotate at 55 knots at full power. Oh, our rudder's not connected. Doesn't matter, hopefully we won't come off. 55 knots, rotate. There we go. We maintain VY, which is 74 knots as shown here. And we'll enable our autopilot, and that will do it for us, because we've set flight level change to climb us to 3000, and we want it to maintain 74 knots, and that's exactly what it's doing. You've got it set to, you've got that magenta line here to show you what speed it's set to. Just checking that nav 1 is still set and it hasn't jumped to nav 2. Over here is showing us what direction we are flying. So we want to now start our turn up and intercept that line, okay? So to do that, I'm going to use my heading bug, and then we still have heading selected here, and we're going to turn it to, oh, we didn't have it selected before, but now we're going to set it to intercept this line. It shows you we're left of our GPS track, our GPS course, okay? The closer we get to it, we can change it to nav, and then it will automatically follow our GPS course track. So I'm going to skip forward to that part just to keep the tutorial not as long as it needs to be. We're still climbing to our set altitude at 3000 feet. Now we're 100 feet from our altitude. We should start settling down to 3000. Here we go.
Squawk 076 for Cessna Victor Zulu Romeo.
So it's telling us to squawk 076. To go to our transponder code, we go to XBDR, which stands for transponder, and it told us to squawk 0764. So then we click code. 0764 is already set automatically, which is perfect. But if it wasn't, we'll just type it in like that. ILJ has come up. We have tuned into the localizer frequency at Luton runway 25. We have nav 1 set. ILS nav 1 set on bearing also. But if we were to fly with the GPS selected, it won't intercept the localizer. We have to change it to lock 1, because nav 1, it coincides with lock 1, okay? But we want it to keep following the GPS at the moment, so we're going to set it to the GPS magenta line. There's something I have to go over with you. We've got the flight director here, which is the arrow, the magenta arrow. If we turn autopilot off, we can then turn that flight director off. So the autopilot actually is different to the flight director. They're two different things. The flight director tells the autopilot where it should go to follow our navigational course. So that magenta line and this magenta line is all got to do with our navigational course. Okay. If we have the autopilot turned off, we can still have the flight director on and follow it manually ourselves, right? If we want to do some hand flying. But for the sake of the tutorial, I'll have the autopilot following the flight director. We can also have the mini map here if we don't want to keep glancing at that screen to show we're on that track. Now I'm going to press nav and the plane should turn. Now we've overshot the line. I should have done it a few seconds before. Now the plane's going to go back onto that GPS track after pressing navigational mode. So before we had it on heading mode, where it follows that bug here that we set on the CDI. So once we change from heading mode to nav mode, it will follow our GPS track. We're at 2700 RPM. I'll redline the engine. I should have pulled it back to 2300 RPM. That's the cruising RPM for the Cessna 172. It's easy to get distracted when I'm making a tutorial. But it's making the flight go quicker and keeping the video shorter, which is ideally what I wanted. We click our flight plan. It's showing us we're 9.2 nautical miles. It also shows on our screen up here, 9 nautical miles away from our final approach fix. That's where we should be on the glide slope. And we should be at 3,000 feet, which we are. If we wasn't at 3,000 feet, say we were too low, I would change the flight level change to a different altitude, right? So I would go to 4,000, and as you can see, the plane is going to start climbing to 4,000 once I press flight level change. If I want to keep the altitude wherever it is, so I want it to stop at 3,040, I'll press altitude and it would hold that altitude there. If I want to descend back to 3,000, I'll set 3,000. Then I'll press vertical speed mode and then initiate the descent by pressing nose down. Up here shows the rate of descent in feet per minute. So that was 300 feet per minute. Now it's 150 feet a minute, and now it's going to hit the 3,000 marker and hold it. Because we have the ILS tune, see look, it's jumped to nav 2. We don't want to let that happen. We want to make sure we're selected nav 1. So left click and then right click, we're at nav 1. Now we can go back again, select our CDI to lock 1. So as you can see, we're on the localizer line. We're slightly to the left of it. We're 5 nautical miles from our final approach fix. Until we get closer to it, that's when we're going to press our approach button. We can press it now. Nothing will happen until we get close enough to our final approach fix. Okay, so I'm going to go back to GPS until then. So our autopilot follows our nav route until we get a little bit closer to our final approach fix. That's when I'm going to select lock 1. Let's jump back to nav 2. I don't know why it keeps doing this. Is so bugged, but make sure you keep your eye on that because that can catch you out like it did to me. It doesn't happen in real life. Right, so we're getting closer to lock 1. I'm going to press the approach button. And as you see, it changed it to lock from GPS to lock. So now the flight director is going to try and get us on our ILS course line. And it should also descend the plane on the 3 degrees glide slope. So we'll start descending automatically soon. We've got glide slope up here as well to let us know we're ready to catch the glide slope. And this green diamond will start coming down. Ideally, that's when I should have pressed approach mode. This magenta line here shows us how left or right we are from the localizer, along with this green line. So we're looking on the right track. We've got a slight crosswind coming from 270 at 19 knots. Let's get rid of this map. One nautical mile until we start descending. So that's when the diamond should be coming in. We're maintaining 70 knots is a good approach speed. Then we're going to start configuring the flaps to land. So right now we're below the glide slope. We're not going to start the descent yet. So if the green diamond is up, means we have to go up if we didn't have autopilot doing it for us. If the green diamond was down, we'd pitch down to catch the localizer. So now we're going to enter the glide slope. Now we've got the green diamond right in the middle. We've got glide slope flashing here. We're on the glide slope. Now we're going to start reducing the speed. Put a notch of flaps in there. Plane's going to start speeding up because it's descending. So we want to maintain around 70 knots with that power setting on flaps 1. Ignore what you see on these screens. Is the diamond, which is the most important, and the flight director. So these in real life can also never be that accurate. The diamonds are the most important thing when following an ILS. We can see at the Luton puppies we have 2 whites, 2 reds. We're on glide slope. Everything's looking good. We've got live weather as well. I should have done it with the weather a little bit lower so we could have then seen how accurate the ILS was, but maybe in another tutorial. If you like this ILS tutorial, I will do a GPS approach one, which is slightly different. We don't use a localizer. We use the GPS. We use GPS approach and VNAV. VNAV is basically a way of descending the plane down without having to use flight level change and vertical speed. When you press the VNAV button in a GPS approach, it will descend the plane itself. But for ILS, we don't need to worry about VNAV. I'll cover that into another tutorial. Plane is stable. It's slowing down a little bit, but maintaining a safe speed, a safe approach speed. The green diamonds in the middle, everything's looking good as it should be. We're aware of where our wind's coming. We haven't got our clearance yet. Yeah, this view's going to be a little bit better. Now, once we have caught the localizer markers, you've got outer, middle, and inner markers, you'll start hearing an audible beep, and we can press the mute marker button here, otherwise it will keep going. It'll be super annoying. So remember where the mute marker button is once you start hearing right. It will come in any second now. Maintaining 70 knots. Approach is stable-ish. Approach is stable. You're always going to get fluctuations between 2 to 3 knots. Okay, flaps 2, we'll start slowing the plane down a bit more. And here you go, the speed is dropping. Wait for it to stabilize. Wait until we hear the marker. Right now the puppies say that we're a bit high, but it can never always be accurate, so just rely on the ILS instruments more. Just worry about what the localizer's doing, okay? Because this is probably set to airliners, and we're in a Cessna, so our approach should be slightly different. Right, full flap. We want to get down to around 65. So we're stable at 67. We want to be around 65 knots. There we go. Are we stable? Around 60 knots. On final approach. We haven't heard our markers for some reason. Okay, I'm going to disconnect the autopilot. And I'm going to hand fly the approach. There we go. Idle the throttle. I want to touch down here. There we go. Center line, baby. And there you go. That's your ILS landing. If you like the tutorial, please like and subscribe. Put in the comments below what your other requested tutorials are. If you found this helpful, tell me about it below. If there's anything else you want me to tell you about, I'll be sure to get that covered in the next tutorial. See ya!